How you doing, everyone? Scott here, back again with my album ranking for Wasp. Wasp being one of my favourite 80s bands. One of the first bands I really ever got into when I kind of discovered metal and hard rock and shock rock and sleaze metal, and along with Motley Crue and Rat, Wasp were one of those bands that really hit me hard when I first kind of got into metal. So over the last few years, I've collected the full discography. I've had the full discography now for a few months. That's when I like to do these album rankings. So there's 15 studio albums. I will, as usual, go from my least favourite to my favourite, and hopefully explaining in some sort of fashion why they're in the position they are. Before I start, Wasp have some classic, amazing albums, but there are some that really don't make the cut for me. And you might think, why have you got a full discography if you don't like some of it? It's not that I don't like it, some of it is just, it's quite weak. But I can still enjoy parts of the albums. Unlike a lot of these kind of rankings that I've done, a few of the bands I've done, I quite like all the albums. It's a chore to try and put them in some sort of order. This wasn't so difficult, really. Although I have kind of chopped and changed a little bit. Some are obviously weaker compared to others. When you get to that kind of middle section, it does get a bit tricky, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy with this order. So again, starting at 15, and I think Wasp's weakest album is going to be The Neon God Part 2, The Demise. For the simple reason that it's just so forgettable. I mean, I've listened to it a few times when I got the CD, and when I decided I was going to do this ranking, this was really the first album I kind of clung to get to know it a bit better, because it was one of those albums that I'd kind of maybe just kind of brushed over, and yeah, I put it on twice at work, twice in the same day, back to back, and it just did nothing for me. Standout track is the first song, Never Say Die, and I think that's more memorable because at the start it just says never say die, never say die, no, never say die. So it's a half decent song, but the album overall is very, very forgettable. So that comes in last and number 15. Coming in at number 14, probably the album people would expect to be at the bottom. It's going to be Eldorado from 1999. And I think this is just more memorable for me because people come out and say in the VC, or when they're doing rankings, or when people buy this, when they pick it up and talk about it, it makes it more memorable because I actually kind of put a bit more effort into listening to it, because you hear about this album probably more than others because it's regarded as their weakest, probably by the majority of people, but it is memorable. It's more memorable for me because people speak about it. Blackie Lawless does have this kind of habit in this album of staying in this kind of high-pitched screech where he doesn't really have to be. He doesn't vary his vocals very much. Although the songs are varied, I don't think the songs are really terrible songs. It's just quite uninteresting. So that's why that has to come near the bottom for me. It's just you know, it's not going to be one that you go to all the time. So that is Eldorado from 1999. Number 13 is going to be Unholy Terror. Again, just a very forgettable album. This is the album that me and Andy Cloudy Milder were listening to on the way back up from meeting Metal Mickey. We went to see Chris Holmes on his kind of solo tour around the UK, which is another story completely, but it's very, very forgettable. And I think I had this in the car for a good while, that, you know, when you've got a CD in the car and it just plays over and over again and you don't really bother changing it, you just go, I'll just keep this on. I mean, it was like that, and it still didn't really stick in my mind. One song that did stick out was Ravenheart. That is a very, very good song, and that's like a real classic Wasp song. But apart from that, I'm looking through the song list, and it's not really doing much for me. I can't really remember much about it, so that has to come down near the bottom for me. Next up, so we're kind of moving into the next tier of albums now. One that does get a lot of flack, but I really enjoy. It's KFD from 1997. This saw the return of Chris Holmes on guitar. Although it's got that kind of industrial feel to it, I think it's a really interesting album. It kind of sticks out. It is a stick out album from the discography because it does have a different sound, and I think because of that, I enjoy it. It's like a fresh take on Wasp. It's not like the first three, Blackie Lawless, just kind of going through the motions, and people say he's a perfectionist, but I reckon if he was that much of a perfectionist, those albums would have been far, far better. But this, obviously this kind of time, these bands were kind of finding their feet in the 90s. They didn't know what direction to go in. And I think this was a really good direction for Wasp. I mean, I really enjoy this album. When you look at the track listing, Kill Fuck Die, which is the opening track, I really enjoy. My Torture Dies, Wicked Love, The Horror, which closes the album, is very, very good as well. So I kind of think this gets kind of unjustified flack. I mean, I know you've kind of got to be a fan of the industrial style of music, and to be fair, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I just think this works really, really well. I think Wasp sound really good doing this style of music. So that's KFD from 1997, coming in at number 12. Number 11 is going to be part 1 of the Neon God, The Rise. What I would say about this album is it's quite long. It's 14 tracks, but some great tracks on it. The closing song has to be my favourite, and that's the Raging Storm, or Raging Storm. Really good. When I first kind of got into downloading, well, not when I first got into downloading music, but when I first got into hard rock and metal, I'd heard the first 2 Wasp albums, and I was kind of looking for more. I didn't know what songs were on which album, so I kind of just went on the names, and I thought Raging Storm was like a really great name of a song, and it turns out it was a very, very good song. So overall a bit long, but still a really decent album. Next up is one that doesn't really sit well with some people either, but I find a really strong album. It's going to be 2002's Dying for the World. This was kind of inspired by the 9/11 attacks, and it's kind of, when I go through the track list, you've got Shadow Man, My Wicked Heart, Black Bone Torso, Hell for Eternity, Hallowed Ground, Trail of Tears, Stone Cold Killers. You know, it's along those lines. It's definitely heavily influenced by what happened in New York. So, but when I look at the track list, and I'm amazing songs. Shadow Man, which kicks off the album, I think is a fantastic song. My Wicked Heart is a great song. Best song on the album, hands down, has got to be Hallowed Ground. When I think of hard rock and heavy metal albums, I don't know, I used to love those kind of slowed down, ballady, moody songs. Um, but as I've got older, I'm more into the kind of high energy rocker songs now. But one thing Blackie Lawless does very, very well is write a moody ballad. And I don't mean like a love song or anything like that. I just mean that kind of slowed down, moody, atmospheric. Um, I don't really want to say ballad now, but that you know, that kind of song. And Hallowed Ground is one of Wasp's best songs, I think. So I think this is really underrated by people. So that is Dying for the World, coming in at number 10. Sorry, I think I've got allergies, so I'm kind of sniffing a little bit, but I'll march on. As usual, sponsored by Iron Brew, sugar free. Okay, number 9 is going to be the album Dominator. Can't remember when this actually came out, but this is kind of inspired by Blackie Lawless kind of feeling down with the kind of way America was going. I'm probably sure he's even more down now, but and that just, I don't mean that just in America, I mean just for everyone. But yeah, it's one of those albums that really stick out for me in this discography. Kicks off the album with Mercy. The third track, Take Me Up, I think is a fantastic track. It's got a great riff in it, great guitar tone in it. The Burning Man is a great song. Heaven's Hung in Black is a really great song as well. Although he does reprise it, but that's nor here nor there. Deal with the Devil, I think that's a cover, but still, I think a very strong album. I just love the guitar tone on it. Blackie sounds awesome on it, so that's coming in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Inside the Electric Circus. Yeah, the weakest of the 80s material, but that's not to say there's not some amazing songs on it. There is. You've always got the Big Welcome, which is obviously the Ringmaster coming in and welcome to the Electric Circus. Then you've got the title track. That's a really great song. Restless Gypsy, awesome song. King of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a good album. It doesn't quite match up to the 80s stuff, but I think is still very decent. So that's coming in at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is going to be their newest release, Golgotha. Now I know some people kind of put this up there in the top 5, top 3. For me, I don't know what it lacks a little something. Now I'm not saying obviously they phoned in this album, but I don't know. I mean, some great songs on it. Last Runaway, Fallen Under, Slaves of the New World Order. It is a very cohesive album. It's very easy to listen to, but I think at the end of it, you're kind of left just missing a little something. And I think for me, looking at it now, is the ballad Miss You. That does miss me a little bit, because it is that kind of, well, I don't know, it just seems like typical Blackie Lawless. When I think of Blackie Lawless doing those kind of ballady songs, everyone is very unique. It's got its own kind of vibe to it. This ballad seems quite generic, I would say. So, and I mean, I can understand why people would think it's a great song, but I mean, it's got all the right chords in it, all those right melodies in it to make a great ballad, but I just think it's a little generic. But apart from that, a really, really solid album. So that is our latest from 2015. Golgotha. Coming in at number 6 is going to be Babylon. Probably not a strong album for some people, but I think this is a really great album. Songs like Crazy, Live to Die Another Day, Babylon's Burning is a great song, Into the Fire, best song on the album. Again, that kind of slowed down but heavy, moody song. Seas of Fire, Promised Land. Is it that one that's a... Let me check, that one might be a... It's Promised Land, yeah. So Promised Land is a cover by Chuck Berry. And you've got Burn. Deep Purple. But I still think it's a really great album. And I know kind of people see it as a bit of a weaker album, but nah, I think this is a really great album. I can listen to this all the way through. So that is coming in at number 6, Babylon. So into the top 5. This is where some surprises may occur. But here we go. Number 5, their second release from 1985, The Last Command. So this is the second album I heard. I heard them pretty much in order. But Wild Child, superb song. Ball Crusher, Widowmaker, an awesome song. Blind in Texas is okay. I don't mind, the chorus is pretty good, but you've got that kind of like the spoken part in it. It's a bit cheesy, but it's not too bad. Cries in the Night is a great song. Last Command is probably the best song on the album. Running Wild in the Streets, very, very solid. Just a kind of 80s classic, really, when you think back to that kind of sleaze rock, hard rock, metal, kind of shock rock of the 80s. This is right up there. So that comes in at number 5. Number 4, maybe the biggest kind of surprise of this list, but I just love this album. Still Not Black Enough from 1995. Now, people are out there, I know, thinking, what? How is that at number 4? But this album just clicks with me in every way. Now, it might not be your typical Wasp, but songs like Still Not Black Enough is an awesome song. It's got a cover of Somebody to Love. I've never liked that song, not the original, not any version of that. It just does not sit well with me at all. Black Forever is a good song. Scared to Death is one of the best songs in the album. Goodbye America, Keep Holding On, Rock and Roll to Death, Breathe, that's an amazing ballad. I know I'm mentioning a lot of ballads here, but Blackie Lawless does these songs so well that you can't not mention them. No Way Out of Here, it's a really solid album, and I don't know why it's so underrated. Maybe it's just a fluke that I like this album. I know obviously that's what makes it interesting. People have their different opinions about different albums, but I just think it's really solid, and although it's not maybe the Wasp you expect, I think the songs are really, really strong. So that's Still Not Black Enough from 1995. That comes in at number 4. Coming in at number 3, absolute classic, The Crimson Idol from 1992. Just one of those, when you think concept album, I think of The Crimson Idol, Operation Mindcrime, Hall of the Mountain King, and it's just one of the best albums of the time with that kind of conceptual take on it. I could probably do without the kind of the skits, because I mean, when you listen to the album, okay, they work, but even the actors' voices don't sound great. You know, it sounds like bad acting, in my opinion. I think the songs kind of speak for themselves. So songs on this, the writing's quite small. The Invisible Boy, is a great song. Arena of Pleasure, The Idol, Hold On To My Heart, amazing stuff. As you can see, I've got The Idol, the 10-inch single up here, signed by W.A.S.P. It's one of my favourite tracks from Wasp. It's an awesome song. Hold On To My Heart as well is it's a really emotional track, but it's just so good. And it's not one of those kind of generic ballads like when these bands were bringing out these kind of slowed down ballads in the 80s. They were doing it basically for the sake of having a ballad on the album. I think when Blackie Lawless does it, it's for a reason. It tells a good story. It's not just, I loved someone and they left me and now I'm going to cry and write a song about it. It has different emotions. It's about different situations. It's not all about love. It's about different things, and I think that's why these kind of ballads really come across to me, and I can really kind of connect with them as well. But some great rocking tracks on this as well. But again, I could maybe do without those kind of skits in it. I think the one that kind of stands out for me is The Manager. When you listen to The Manager talking to Jonathan within the album, it just sounds a bit like they could have got a better actor or something. So, but still, great album, coming in at number 3. So number 2, and also giving away my number 1, is going to be The Headless Children from 1989. A superb album. And it's one of those albums I really held off from buying. I don't know what it was, although it's like in that prime time that you would think Wasp would be doing their best work. I don't know if it was the album cover or what it was, but I just kind of really ignored this album for a long time. And then I finally picked it up really cheap on eBay. I thought I'll grab it, I'll see what it's like, and I loved it. It's an absolutely brilliant album. It's a solid 9 out of 10. You've got The Heretic, The Lost Child, The Real Me, which is a cover of, I think it's The Who, which is actually a really good cover. I actually enjoy that version better than, I think it is The Who. But it's a decent song. You've got the title track, Thunderhead, Mean Man, a song written about Chris Holmes, really great stuff. Neutron Bomber, Mephisto Waltz, Forever Free. Now Forever Free was a song that I really didn't like when I first heard it. It kind of annoyed me. It'd be the song that I would skip, but now I can really appreciate that song. I think it's great. And it ends the album with Rebel in the FDG, which is a classic Wasp song as well. So awesome stuff. Just, it's essential Wasp. So that is The Headless Children. So coming in at number 1, you already know it's going to be the debut from 1984. You know, The Headless Children nearly made it. The Crimson Idol nearly made it. But this was the first Wasp album I ever heard. This and The Last Command were the first 2 albums of Wasp I heard. The story goes that I was working for a company and I worked with this guy. He was really into hard rock and metal. He had everything, like from Kiss to Iron Maiden to Wasp to Motley Crue. He was into everything. And he's actually been at a lot of gigs that I now go to, but I never ever see him. I've always seen on Facebook or something that he's there, and I've never ever met him at one of these gigs. But he kind of got me into Wasp. He said, have you heard of his band called Wasp? They're from the 80s, kind of sleaze metal and kind of shock rock kind of stuff. I was like, no, I've never heard them. So he says, right, I'm going to burn you these CDs, I'm going to bring them in tomorrow and we're going to listen to them in the van while we're driving around. So he did that. We listened to the debut, The Last Command, back to back. Absolutely loved them. But when I first heard the song, I Want to Be Somebody, that's probably one of Wasp's most well-known songs. Love Machine, that's got an absolutely amazing chorus. I don't know how many times I've heard that song, but I still love it. Flame, School Days is okay. That almost lets the album down, but I can deal with it. Sleeping in the Fire is an amazing song. One of Wasp's best. Really shows off Blackie Lawless's songwriting. Then you've got Tormentor. That is my favourite song on the album. When you hear that rattle at the start of the song and it kicks in to the chorus, I just love it all the way through. The lyrics are really good. The chorus is amazing. I just think it's a really, really strong metal song. And it really, really stands out on this album. And then you've got the closing track, The Torture Never Stops, which is also another really great track. So yeah, when I first heard this album, I was all over it. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a perfect album, but it's the one that kind of really sticks with me. It's got some weaker tracks. On Your Knees is a weaker track. Hellion's a weaker track, but overall, if I had to choose one Wasp album that I could only listen to ever again, it would be the debut. It's just an absolute classic, and I don't know if they've really ever beaten it. And I mean, Blackie Lawless, Wasp have written some amazing songs, but as a album overall, this is my number one. So there we go, Wasp from 1984. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know it's taken me a while to kind of get round to doing this, but I don't know, undertaking these kind of album rankings, I always kind of really like to get them right. Really kind of try and take in the album as best as I can, and get these lists as accurate as I can in my own mind. So let me know what you think. What's your top 10, your 15, 5, your top 3, your top album? You can let me know in the comments, and I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Cheers.